Good morning, everyone. I call the meeting to order. We have a number of guests, so I think the first item of business is to go through quick introductions. And we'll start with Lane this time.
Good morning. I'm Lane Johnson, the Director of Corporate Services.
I'm Pam Elliott, Planning and Development Admin Assistant.
Good morning, Ellen Unruh, and I represent the lands around the village of Rosemary.
Good morning, I'm Tracy Fife, Division 5, and that's south and west around the area of Brooks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kelly Chrisman from the Bassano area, Division 6.
Good morning, I'm Kevin Stevenson, County Administrator.
Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Douglas, and I represent Division 6, the area around Gem and Finnegan.
Good morning. I'm Clarence Amulong. I come from the Rolling Hills area, and I have the privilege of chairing MPC.
Good morning, Anne-Marie Phillipson, Patricia area.
Morning, Brian DeJong, and I represent Div 8, which is the area around the village of Dutchess.
Good morning, Hugh Callum, Division 2, Tilley area.
Good morning, Lionel Just, and I represent Division 10, which is north and east of Brooks.
Brooks Bulletin.
I'm sorry, I'm Sandra. I'm with the Brooks Bulletin newspaper.
And we'll start with the ladies. Sir. Okay. 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 Great. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. We have one member missing, which is Wayne. Could we have him excused, please? Alan? Alan moves. All in favor? The minutes from September the 6th have been circulated. Anne-Marie?
Before I make a motion to approve, there's maybe one change we need to make, and it's on page 3 of 6. Conditions of development approval. This approval under A is effective as of September 27th. And then when you go to C, it says this approval is effective on September 6th. So maybe change that. And then I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Thanks for having an eagle eye. Any other questions? Morning, everyone. Comments? Okay, all in favor? That is passed. Are there any post-agenda items from anyone? Seeing none, could we have an approval of the agenda? Tracy? Tracy moves. All in favor?
Good morning. I'm Lane Johnson, the Director of Corporate Services.
Then we'll go to development permits. Shanna Lee.
I'm Pam Elliott, Planning.
Development permit 2018075 is to construct an agricultural building on the farm site. In the Fringe District, construction of an agricultural building is a discretionary use. The applicant is not requesting any variances. In discussions with the City of Brooks, they don't require a road approach agreement, and the applicant will be accessing the parcel from the City of Brooks Road. There was no issues or concerns from staff. There was no issues or concerns with the IMDP committee. There was no responses from adjacent landowners, and we recommend approval with conditions.
I represent Division 6, the area around Gem and Finnegan.
Comments, questions? Tracy.
I was just going to move for approval as outlined.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Relatively straightforward. Motion has been made. All in favor? Okay, that is passed. Going on to the second one, Shanna Lee.
Division 2, Tilley area.
Development permit 2018077 is to install a new manufactured home with an attached deck on the farm site. The applicant is requesting a 20-foot variance from 100 feet to 80 feet. The applicant is requesting the variance because the new house will replace an existing house that had been in a fire, and he would like to use the existing septic system. It is recommended for this minimum security deposit of $5,000. There was no concerns from staff. There was no response from adjacent landowners, and we recommend approval with conditions.
Any questions or concerns from MPC? Kelly?
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve.
Approve is recommended. Ready to vote. All in favor? That is also passed with the variances. Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. And we have the last one, which is Wayne.
Development permit 2018081 is a change in use from a contractor's yard to a church. There's no variances being requested for this application. Access to the parcel is from RR150, which is a paved road. The existing use of the contractor's yard and farm machinery sales, as well as the buildings, was approved in September of 2005. The businesses have not been in operation for approximately 2 years. The church expects 50 to 100 vehicles on Sundays, starting the congregation at 50 families but increasing to 100. There will be approximately 25 vehicles on weekdays for meetings, which are held every 3 months. The church will open to their use for activities in their facility 1 day a week from 7 to 10 p.m. and will be supervised by leaders. The parking for a religious assembly is required by the Development Authority. The landowner feels that they have capacity for 100 vehicles. I have included a condition that all vehicles must be contained on the parcel. There will be no playground area or activities planned for outside the church building. The existing building is using a septic holding tank. The minimum size of a holding tank in standards of practice is 1,000 gallons. There is not a maximum size. It's at the discretion of the landowner, the size of the tank and how often they would like to have it emptied. A response letter from the adjacent landowner to the south has been included in the package. They're concerned about the access easement that crosses their property, providing access to the parcel from the south boundary. They're requesting that the county have the access easement removed. While the county cannot force the removal of the access easement from the title, it is possible to add conditions of approval that would limit or eliminate access from the south boundary. The adjacent landowner's suggestions could be added as conditions of approval for this permit. Suggestions include planting a double row of trees along the perimeter, building a suitable fence, installing signage. There was no issues or concerns from staff. There was one response from adjacent landowners included in your package. The IMDP response is included in the package, and Planning and Development recommends approval with conditions, and the folks are here to answer questions. Development permit 2.
Okay, we have a number of people in the audience. Does anyone want to make any opening statements?
With an attached deck on the farm site. The applicant is requesting a 20-foot variance from 100 feet to 80 feet. The applicant is requesting the variance because the new house will replace an existing house that had been in a fire, and he would like to use the existing septic system. It is recommended for this minimum security deposit.
Yes, thank you for inviting me here.
There was no concerns from staff. There was no response from adjacent landowners, and we recommend...
Yes, we do understand that the neighbor was asking us to plant a couple of rows of trees around the property, and we... as far as that goes, we think that it could probably be eliminated at some point, if possible.
With the variances, yes.
The reason why is for safety. First of all, if we plant a row of trees all the way around the property, it takes view away from us to go up onto the highway, and also we think it should probably be our say of where to plant trees, except if the county would want us to plant trees in certain places, and we would definitely look into that. As far as the fence, we would not be against to put a fence around from the highway all the way to the west end, and then go back to the northwest corner, so it will take complete access away to the road for any kids on the land. Having said that, we're also concerned of his own side there for his road that he's using to go into his house there. If we do put a fence along that road,
or activities planned for outside the church building.
We want to be
The existing building is using a septic.
thinking ahead for him as well. We think it would really fill up that whole driveway for him on the winter time when the snow comes and the snow blows in. It could create a big problem for him if we do put a fence along it. And I'd say that we're not against to put it there, but we think we would just have him think that over again and see if he really wants a fence there.
They're requesting that the county have the access easement removed. While the county cannot force the removal of the access easement from the title, it is possible to add conditions of removal that would
ask if there's any questions from MPC
the adjacent landowner's
at this point. Yes, Molly?
Yeah, just for better understanding, that easement is for the south entrance, correct? Is there any need to have it? Like, no one's going to be using that entrance, are they?
Well, we would, for us as all church members, would really like to keep it there. And the reason why is if we have two places where somebody goes away from the north, there's 100 vehicles there, and we all take off for same time. Some go to the north, some go to the south. The vehicles would split up and go a different direction, and for safety, it's just for us. We would like to keep it there, but if he's asking us to close that, we would not go against him. But it would sure be nice if we can't have that, then we're thinking to widen the one that's there or have another one on the main highway. I'm not sure what the options are. We would really do what the county want us to do there, of course. So I think that it could probably be eliminated at some point.
Yeah.
Tracy?
The reason why.
Yes. Sorry, my comments kind of were along the exit and entrances too. I guess there would be a traffic flow at some point coming and going from before and after the church service. I think, though, with some signage, I think possibly could be a easier solution. And, you know, in reality, if it is possible just to use the entrance further north, might rectify any concerns from the adjacent landowner, and it's a pretty easy solution. Also, it goes both ways. The adjacent landowner would be entering and exiting off his access, so then he would have to worry about the traffic from the church. So is it a possibility to just use the north entrance? And I think it would kind of solve things with some signage for your congregation, that would be the enter and exit. And I don't know.
I've asked Alice to get a copy of the access easement so we can actually see what the parties have agreed to. I think there could be some issues as well with regards to ongoing maintenance. Again, this is a private driveway. Again, unless the easement states who's maintaining that, I think that the adjacent landowner has a valid concern with this kind of traffic onto his property. And again, who's maintaining, who's going to be graveling it, those types of things. So again, I think the legal access to this parcel is from Range Road 150. And again, I'd encourage MPC to be looking at that as the only one. What could be required is that those, at least the access approach off of that
Better understanding.
could be required to be either, as indicated, to be cordoned off by a fence or blocks, or have it removed completely. So again, I think we need to look at that access easement to understand what roles and responsibilities each landowner has in this particular one. I'm not sure if there was, the contemplation of this type of use on this property with that easement. So if you can bear with us, we'll try to get a copy of that.
Yeah, and I certainly had lots of questions on the easement. At first, like, who was it put in there for? Whose land is it really on? There is further property that to the west there that goes into a triangle. Is that all the same property? How far does it go? All those types of things I certainly think we have to know. Yes?
Okay, I'd like to speak because it's my property, and I bought that off of Joe Prinz, as I'm sure everybody knows Joe Prinz here, and I had full easement rights for that road. We've always maintained that road, even though this landowner, his kids have shot rocks all over my property by U-turns and spinning out. I don't like to knock them, but we've been having to repair for what they've done. And yeah, they've graded it this year, but I haven't, it's been empty for the last 2 years. And there has been never any concern. And now the problem is he's spoiled because there's been zero traffic. Now there's going to be less traffic because it's limited on the activities. If it was another trucking outfit like it used to be, we were in and out of there every day, many hours a day and night, and it never ever concerned. He even told me when I had Latigo Trucking in there, he even told me I had no concerns with you or Latigo. It was great. Now all of a sudden there's a concern, and there's going to be less traffic. And I have to look at it as, okay, what if they don't stay on my property for whatever reason, right? I do not want to lose access to that because I don't know what the future holds, right? And as far as planting trees, my Lord, that last winter, that driveway was plugged up as it was. Like, why would we want to hide if, say, bring another New Holland dealership in or like a machinery? They don't want to be hidden. They want to have people being able to view their property. So I personally don't see any of that as an issue. It'd be more of an issue of him coming to our property and cutting through it, you know. But it's I really don't like to give up the right of that easement and having the tree when you don't know what the future holds. If you know another dealership or somebody else comes in, and that's why people buy this type of property or rent it, because they want to see equipment or whatever you're selling or whatever the deal is, right?
Indicated to be cordoned off by a fence or blocks or have it removed completely.
Kelly?
So again, I think we need to look at that access easement to understand what.
Speaking of the future,
roles and responsibilities each landowner.
what is the plan?
I'm not sure.
Is it a 5-year lease? Is it a 10-year lease? Is there a plan to evolve into a school? What is? Can you share some insight into the future?
Who was it put in there for?
Well, as far as my side of it, we have to settle on all that. Yeah, this was the first step before we could go any further, right? You know, on because of why go any further, whether it'll be a 5-year lease, 10-year lease, or sale, or who knows, right? Until this step was made, then there was no use wasting each other's time or anybody else's time to go any further. So, for that part of the question, we've always maintained that road.
As far as future having a school there's absolutely no plan to put up a school there whatsoever. We do rent a hall there downtown here now for the church that we already have in Brooks. It's inconvenience to rent a Legion Hall there. It works, but we're looking for a building to have church and just as regular time on Sundays and whatever else goes on in church. That's what we're looking for at the moment.
On the activities. If it was another trucking outfit like it used to be.
So, Carl, do you know the history of the easement at all?
Many hours a day and night, and it never ever concerned.
Sorry, what was that? The history, was it originally part of your property? The easement.
Oh, well, it was all one whole big package because Joe owned the whole thing.
Whole corner there.
That whole corner, right? And then when he subdivided it, he gave us the easement for that road. I do not want to lose access to that because I don't know what the future holds, right? And as far as planning,
it's a pretty standard easement agreement. Again, it looked like it may have been done at the time of subdivision, and it was between the owner and the owner. So again, that's when it gets interesting when we have two different owners. There is nothing in here that talks about any maintenance or those types of things, because I think at the time it was his own land. So again, that wasn't a consideration. Again, there is a 4-meter easement that is perpendicular throughout the said lands for the installation of ditches, pipes, pipelines for the supply of domestic and irrigation waters, and then a right of egress and ingress thereto on that 4 meters. So it's a pretty basic standard, not a lot of, there's nothing that says there has to be 2 approaches, 1 approach. So again, that'll be something between these 2 landowners. I think something for MPC to look at is, again, long-term transportation and how you want to access any parcel. In our land use bylaw, we have recently, in the last several years, determined that access by easement is not an appropriate means if there is a more suitable legal, physical, congruent access to a county road. So again, I would recommend that MPC lean towards that and really try to limit this other type of access for this particular use. That's not saying that if this was to change again, if it's a trucking company or whatever, then so be it. But again, we are allowed to determine where access occurs. And so if we say in our permit it is only to allow to come off of 5 or the Range Road 150, on their property, that's where their access is. So again, it speaks to access management, those types of things. Again, I'm not sure that we've had comments from municipal services if they have concerns. I mean, I would think if we had people exiting, that closely together, turning, there's going to be some traffic issues for that moment that the church either starts or ends, or any of the activities that would be going on, whether or not it's funerals, those types of things. There's going to be activity there outside of what I think has been indicated in their application. So again, I think it's important to consider that. I know with the IMDP, there was concern, and they used an example of the mosque that's currently, and they've got some parking issues, and they're kind of overflowing into the roadways and those types of things. So I think it's important when we're looking at these types of uses, which is an institutional use, which is different than a regular commercial use, that we have to look at all of the impacts, especially with parking and transportation and access to that. So again, those would be the things I would suggest that MPC consider in their decision. It's a pretty standard easement agreement.
But there is an agreement right now that's kind of been grandfathered. There's an easement that's, and the landowner to the south needs it, unless he builds another approach to the highway. I mean, it's something we have to live with. We really haven't any control over maintenance or that type of thing. That's an agreement between landowners. Is that not correct?
That is. And again, I think what the one landowner is asking, as this is something, again, he purchased it with an easement, the other one purchased it with an easement, and then trying to determine how those two work together. I think where MPC's role is saying, look, you can leave those two landowners to determine whatever they want to do, but we as MPC and the county can determine where's the most reasonable place to take access. And to me, accessing off of a paved county road would be the preferred location versus allowing them to use a graveled easement, which again, there's liability issues and all those other things that you have to consider as you've got 100 cars traveling on there that are not related to perhaps the one other landowner involved. We've got third-party people here. So again, I think from a, if you're looking to approve this, that would be one of my recommendations, is you limit that access to the county road at the county road location, not use the easement. Trucking company or whatever, then so be it. But again,
Molly.
And so, I mean, I'm hearing that might be a little bit not as handy, but I think it's a good solution. And obviously less dusty when it's windy or it's spring or dry, or when it's wet, the road could be muddy. I think, keeping the access available for the future is important. I mean, you might have another machinery dealership and you need a bigger place to move around or whatever. But I don't know much about this piece of land, but I mean, would having the cars come in only from the north be that big of a deal?
Those types of things, there's going to be activity there.
From the north access.
Indicated in their application. So again,
And for us, it isn't that big of a deal. We just softly ask for keeping it open, but if anything goes against it, we are totally fine with the north. Like I said before, I'm not sure if we would have to widen it. How wide it actually is, that driveway, I've never measured it. Probably good the way it is now. It's been used before with big traffic, so we're like it's not the end of it. I can understand this point. As long as we're not making a deal, he wants to keep it, and it goes for business. It's really understandable. But for us, we're really not. It's not going to stop us from anything if he takes that access away from the property. All as we say, and it would be nice to have it because it's there, to leave it there. But other than that, he is concerned about, it's like it says in the letter, that the big trucks have blocked him off and so on. The way we see it is, this is all small traffic. It's going to be on that road. When we're there, it's going to be better. We think we should be better, but at the same time, if they're there by 50 vehicles could be there at one time, right? So we understand this point, like, and we wouldn't, like I said, that doesn't concern us a whole lot.
Is saying, look, you can leave
Please.
those two landowners.
Just a comment on the parking. Like, this property is right around 4 acres in size. So comparing that to the mosque, like, I know there has been issues down at the mosque of them parking on the roadway and stuff. We all received a parking diagram. I believe that there's enough parking on this property that parking on the roadway isn't going to be an issue. So at this time, I would like to make the motion to approve this permit with, I don't know if this would be a condition, to put the signage that the enter and exit for the church is on 15-0.
I would like to ask, how big is this property and what is to the west? And how long is the easement?
And so
The property is just over 4 acres, and Jim Ailman owns the stuff that you can see off to the west also.
obviously less dusty.
He owns north of that, what looks like a road going off to the northwest?
When it's wet, the road can...
Yes. Yeah, to the northwest is his, to the south is his. That's, to the north there is Scott Tateson.
Okay, yeah.
Place to move around or whatever. But
So, entire property that is under
I
consideration.
mean, would having the cars come
Is that
out
correct?
Yes.
be that
Okay.
big of a deal?
I didn't get a picture printed, but I got it on my phone from the corner of the building, the south west corner of the building, looking towards Ailman's house. You can't see his house because it's all treed. So that part is, pretty covered. You can't see the building with all the trees and the way they're growing up nice around there.
Used before with big traffic, so we're like, it's not the end of it. I can understand this point. As long as we're not making a deal, he wants to keep it.
But I'm in agreement with the signage for the road, which I totally understand that they just let the congregation know the first, their first service, and please limit the access to that road, and then everything would be fine, because, you're limited to the amount of vehicles anyways, so it's not even going to be near what used to be when there was a trucking outfit, and that's why, to me, signage would be should be plenty and fine, and them letting their congregation know that it would be, please limit your use to that road. And yeah, you might get the odd one, but it ain't going to be near what the traffic used to be, so really see no concern.
We understand his point, like we wouldn't, like I said,
Alice?
concern us a whole lot.
So, just to clarify your question, Clarence, my mouse is not working. There's the property right there. Can you see the mouse?
Yep.
And this down here is Highway 873.
Alice, could you speak in your mic a little bit?
This right here is Highway 873. 542. Okay, yeah, that's it.
I believe that there's enough parking on this property.
So does that help?
Parking on the roadway isn't going to be an issue.
Well, when you look at it on Google Maps, it just looked like it was one piece going west with a triangle going that way, but that is, according to Carl, that's Jim's land. So the easement goes to his driveway. Is that into his house? Is that correct? Right how long the easement is? I'd like to ask.
I don't know that.
How big is this property, and what is to the west?
As far as I knew, it went around into either access, but when the trucking company was there, we were able to come around because we had New Holland had a dock on the west entrance there. But that isn't used anymore. It's more used by Ailman cutting through my property himself with the kids. And seriously, I would drag that yard, and the next day I come back, there's ruts where they were spinning out and just making a mess. But we don't use that entrance. I should have blocked it off myself, but we don't use that. It was only the south one is now, and that's, like I said, nothing to worry about.
Well, certainly when it was New Holland, that south entrance was used all the time. Been there many, many times. The motion as it stands, we're leaving the easement as is. We're leaving the issues with the easement to be determined between the neighbors. Is that what I'm understanding? Is that correct? Staff, Tracy? Okay. Is that understood by MPC? And we're saying the official entrance is to the north, to the road going north-south. Yeah. That's the official entrance. Kelly?
Oh, my question is, we're not requiring it to be blocked. I'm feeling that it should be blocked. It's protecting the landowner. Carl, your liability is huge. Having traffic on it's all your personal liability. I think we're protecting you if we do block those other two entrances. I'd be in favor of blockage.
Should be plenty and fine, and them letting their congregation know that it would be, please limit your use to that road. And yeah, you
Emery.
This is just an assumption that you can block off a road when there is an official easement on it.
Diane?
And I guess just for clarification, you're looking at blocking the approaches to the road that has the easement on it, not the easement itself. So again, the landowner of the parcel we're in question you could put a couple of big fence posts in there just to ensure that a car can't get through without having to do, major infrastructure and blocks and whatever, just to show that this isn't, and then post it to say this is not an exit. And that again would limit liability, again, based on this use. So I would say a New Holland dealership or something might be different from a commercial use based on how the thing is set up. These are 50 to 100 individuals traveling on an easement. So again, not what I suggest is probably a great situation when we have legal and physical and limits the liability for everybody to come out onto the county road.
When the trucking company was there, we were able to come around.
But again, that's the choice of the landowner. So we get involved, government tells people enough what to do, so.
So MPC could ask for it to be blocked, so that, or you can leave it. So those are two options. So you do have the right as MPC to add that as a condition, if that's what you choose to do. If you choose to not do it, then again, it could be up to the landowner to determine if they wish to then follow through with it. So just depends on whether or not we go out and do a site inspection in a year and find out if you've asked for it to be blocked and it's not blocked, then, and the other landowner's complaining, then again, we'd have an ability to enforce. At this point, it's a little more difficult if there isn't those pieces there. So again, it's an enforcement thing down the road.
And that was my point in trying to get clarifying what we're approving and what we're not approving. And until Kelly intervened, but that's just one opinion that's not been made change to the motion as such as yet. As the road going north-south. Trace?
So my question, I guess, is sort of opposite to what you had just commented on, Dan. If there becomes an issue, if the landowners do end up in a dispute over traffic, if the congregation doesn't use their approach, then can not blockage be put in after if it becomes an issue?
It could be if you make the statement of, it's just an extra piece to be able to do enforcement on. If you said you're going to use this and the exit onto the county road and you need to have blockage, and if the blockage isn't there, then that speaks to maybe that is being used more often. It still says if there is a complaint, you could issue them an enforcement order, and at that point, as part of the rectification of if they're not using the proper access, the blockage could be a requirement of that enforcement. So just whether you do it now or sometime in the future. So, I mean, either works. It just, from an administrative point of view, the more tools we have in our tool belt or toolbox, then that's more that we can work with. So, again, if you feel that the condition with access being only onto 15.0, then we can work with that. It's just maybe it doesn't give us the extra hammer, just the one. Without having to do.
But right now, what we're saying is the official access. But there is also an agreement between neighbors that there's an easement, and
that again would limit liability.
Is that not an agreement? I'm leaning towards saying that's something neighbors should be working out, not us.
What I'm saying is that it's MPC's responsibility to determine access. You can determine where that access is, and your say is final. Doesn't matter what the two neighbors decide, because they're not the proving authority. So if you determine that that's where the access is, then between the owner of the property, he has the right to go wherever he wants to as part of that easement, but the use you're approving and the access that you're approving for that particular use under this permit only has the right to go out on a 15.0. So I would suggest that it's not the same thing, because you don't have, it's not the owner who's applying for the permit. We have a non-landowner. So the easement is between the landowners. The use is under your control. So, no, I would suggest if you think, well, we just leave it and they can go wherever they want to go, we're going to be back here if you determine the access is onto 15.0 and they start using that easement, we'll be in enforcement. At this point, it's a little more difficult. Now that I've got those confused looks. If there isn't that.
Carl.
So again, it's
I'm not saying, like, what I vision is they'll be using that north entrance. But I am one that's a firm believer on you need a second outage. What if there's something happen, fire, or whatever? You need to be able to get people off the property. You need emergency vehicles to access. And everybody turns on that one. They don't come down to the next one. And then they come down there, they get partway down, oh, that access is blocked. How do we get turned around and get back and get into where time is precious? I'd rather leave it. I believe in putting signage. I believe their good faith is letting everybody know to use the other entrance, but I do not want that blocked. Safety is a big concern, is being able to access and get out if there's reasons, right? I agree with saying, okay, make our north entrance the primary entrance, but do not have that one blocked off. Like, there's no way. I like having a secondary entrance exit if you need. It just it's,
Just whether
I
you
don't
do it
know.
now or sometime in the future. So, I mean, either works. It just
I'm okay with
from a
Tracy's motion,
administrative point of view,
the way it
more
stands.
tools we have in our tool belt or toolbox, then that's more that we can work with.
Further discussion or questions?
I feel that the condition with access being only onto 15.0, then we can work with that. It's just maybe
Yes, go ahead, sir.
extra handwork. Just
I did hear before that she was talking about the agreement of leasing, how long of agreement. This is not an agreement of leasing. We are working on buying it, just so everybody understands. And that, from our point of view, I'd say the same thing as Carl. I can see that exit be so necessary, especially for emergencies if it ever happens or whatever else. And we could definitely bring that up in a meeting and tell them to use that north access only or as much as possible. That's not an issue whatsoever.
as part of that easement, but the use you're approving and the access that you're approving for that particular use under this
So as it stands, Diane,
only has the right
what are we
to
approving?
go out on a 15.0. So I would
I think you're approving what's in the agenda, which I don't have with me at the moment, with the clarification that the primary access or the only access to the use is off of 5.0 or 15.0, sorry.
the use is under your control. So no, I would suggest if you think, well, we just leave it and they can go.
And again, I guess I look at this as an interesting, I'll put my 2 cents. If there was no easement here, if those didn't, we would have considered one access to a parcel to a county road as adequate. So this is something that is a historic thing between, again, the landowners before. This is how they used it. They'd had a road. Now we have different people. The use is changing. It's not what it was when it first was established. So again, I think that in looking at this, really ensuring that you've got access, legal, physical, congruent access to a paved county road is the most logical access for this particular thing. If it was a quilt shop, well, maybe it's something different. Again, each one has its own. This to me is one of our high use types of uses within the community where we have institutional uses, schools and churches, where we have lots of people. Once it's established, we know the use goes up. It's not just Sundays and one day a week. It turns into, and again, if they're going to be purchasing it, I'm sure they're going to want to be utilizing their building to the fullest capacity they can. So again, I think we have to look to say, okay, what makes sense for safety and liability and access. So again, we would have approved this based on that one access. We wouldn't have said you need to have a secondary access. You know me, I like secondary access, so I agree in certain circumstances, but not in this particular one. Would I think that with 50 passenger cars, you can't exit on one exit? They'll have a problem if that's the case. So unless that's not the case and we're looking at 500 cars, then we might need to have a secondary access. So again, we'll see how this grows and matures over the next several years.
We are not, however, asking anybody to close that access. Second one.
It will not be closed,
Right.
but it will not be able to be used. So,
Yes, we have lots of those all over.
yeah. So again, that's the idea. The idea is, and I hope he makes the congregation aware, if they're using that other access, it would be in contravention of their permit. And they can eventually lose their permit if they continue to do that. If they have said that you must take access off that north access, you must take access off that north access.
You may be right, but we are saying that's the official access. And what really happens in real life could be totally different.
Agenda, which I don't have with me at the moment.
I'm saying if that's what it is and the adjacent landowners are upset with it and they're taking pictures of Sunday morning traffic all coming out onto that road and we have evidence that they're not using it correctly, we will have to go through and do enforcement. So there is that ability to rectify and ensure that the access that's being proposed is the one that's being utilized.
We would have We would have considered one access to a parcel to a county road as adequate. So
I would just like to say if the all of a sudden that approach stays there, but we're not allowed to use it, we wouldn't be interested in that. If that is not usable, it has to be taken out because we know if the road is there, we're all humans, and sometimes somebody's going to drive off there. Somebody's going to come up there. It's just the way it is. I would like to say the same as as I've said already. I'd like you guys to should we just make a decision on that if that's open or closed. If it's closed, we'll take it off. If it's open, we'll leave it open, but to use it. That's how I like to put it.
Schools and churches where we have lots of people. Once it's established, we know the use goes up. It's not just Sundays and...
What I'm saying is...
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I also know it, and we both know what happens.
To the fullest capacity they can. So again, I think we have to look to say, okay, what makes sense for safety and... Okay, one other solution again. MPC can continue to say primary access is from 15-0. If they purchase the property and understand that they cannot use it, then it's up to them to remove it. It does not have to be a condition of MPC. So again, they need to do whatever they need to do personally to do that. So I said, I think that, again, if your decision is that you want them to take access off the paved road, then that's all you have to say. And they can make whatever other arrangements they have to do to ensure that they can comply with the conditions of their permit. And matures over the next several years.
We are not, however, asking anybody to close that access. Second one.
It will not be
Okay,
closed,
you ready?
but it will
All in
not
favor?
be used. So
yes, we have lots of those all over.
yeah. So again, that's the idea. The idea is, and I hope he makes the congregation aware, if they're using that other access, it would be in contravention of their permit. And they can eventually lose their...
Thank you for coming in.
to do that.
Appreciate it.
They have said that you must take access off that north access. You must take access off that north access.
You may be right, but we are saying that's the official access. And what really happens in real life. Okay, we have no post-agenda items. Question period.
I'm saying if that's
Any
where they are,
questions?
adjacent landowners are upset with